Good evening, guys, and happy Saturday to all of your sunshiny faces. I was gonna say Friday because honestly, I was kind of confused because my dad had work today, so I told you guys that yesterday. That's why we tried to kind of cram in all of our shopping yesterday, which we were originally not going to do, but my dad actually got home from work earlier yesterday. And my mom was supposed to take me to Jewel earlier in the day, and then we were going to go to Meijer later. Instead, we're going to Jewel tomorrow and Aldi, which I have one thing on my Aldi list. I'm not even sure if there's really anything else that we need. But other than that, like I said, I don't have much that I have to get from Aldi. And Jewel isn't a ton of stuff. But again, we did wind up doing the other stores all yesterday, and that was because we knew we weren't going to be able to like do them today, and we couldn't do them earlier in the week because we had a lot of other stuff going on. And so anyways, like especially my dad, he had something going on almost every single night, it seemed like, except maybe like Monday and maybe Tuesday of last week. I think he had something going on Wednesday, Thursday, and even Friday. He had something going on yesterday, but it wasn't until late in the afternoon. So that's why we were able to do the grocery shopping earlier when he got home from work, and to, you know, like I was saying, like before he had the thing that was going on yesterday. So, again, we're doing those stores tomorrow, the other two. But he wasn't home today, and honestly too, because of that, like, and my mom wasn't feeling good, so that's why we didn't go to Jewel yesterday. But then she wasn't feeling good, so like she woke up late today. I went to bed actually early last night. I went to bed, I even read my book. I ended up, like I said, I got, you know, I was asleep like early last night, pretty early. And Jack, you know, obviously he didn't have school today, but like hardly anybody else was up. And like normally on the weekends too, my dad's up. Like for some reason, I don't want to say he's noisier, but like it's just because I guess maybe I'm not used to him being home, and like he just seems like he's like up doing things more. Like again, because my mom wasn't feeling good today, like she was just like, she did get up, but then she was just like laying in the living room. And also too, I think because I was so tired, I slept through like anybody like making any kind of noise in the house. I ended up sleeping in so late today, guys. It was absolutely ridiculous. So like I said, I think I was just so tired though from the night before, because I told you guys how on Friday me and my mom were going to go to Jewel early, so that's why I went to bed kind of late, because I think I was finishing up my grocery list or whatever. But I went to bed kind of late, then woke up kind of early. Like I only ended up getting like maybe 5 to 6 hours of sleep or something like that. Then last night I completely overslept, and so like I said, I don't know too if it was like I woke up maybe around 10 o'clock and was like, what day is it? I was like, am I supposed to be getting up to do something? And I told you guys too how I'm going over to my aunt's house on Tuesday, and I'm gonna stay over there probably for 2 nights until Thursday. But because of that, you know, I was, for some reason, when I woke up like in my insanely like super tired but super like oversleeping mind, was like, oh, I have to get up and like go and find my aunt and ask her about taking care of the like pictures, which is what I'm going over there for. I'm gonna go and help her organize her pictures. And I was like, wait, I'm still in my house. It's like, for some reason I was so totally out of it. And then I ended up being like, oh, it's okay. And then I was like, wait, no, what day is it? I was like, am I supposed to be going over there today? I was like, because I was like, clearly I'm still at my house, I'm not at her house yet. And I was like, okay, so am I supposed to be going over there today? And I was like, no, wait, what day is it? And like, I couldn't figure out what day it was, because I think I was so thrown off on top of that too that my dad wasn't home. Like, so I was like, somehow I knew he wasn't home, but I don't know how I didn't knew that he wasn't home. Like maybe I was like, because he didn't come and ever take the dogs out, and like he didn't ask me like, oh, are we going to the grocery store? So like, you know, come to like wake me up or something like that. So that's why I don't know, I woke up this morning so totally out of it and was like, oh, we're going to like the grocery stores. And I was like, no, wait, like I'm over at my aunt's house. And I was like, no, I'm at home still. And I was like, wait, am I supposed to be going over there? We're supposed to be going to the grocery store. I was like, what day is it? Finally, once I got my bearings, I was like, okay, no, it's Saturday. We're not going anywhere. And I was like, you know what, I could fall back asleep if I wanted to. I did, and ended up falling back asleep again when I woke up at 10 o'clock. The problem is though, is that, long story, guys, I turned off on my phone my alarms for Saturday morning, because when we would go to the grocery store on Saturday mornings, like my dad would, a lot of times he will text me in the morning and be like, are you awake or whatever. The text message will come through and it'll wake me up. but I have like do not disturb on my phone during like my sleep schedule hour or whatever. And so if I don't wind up turning my alarm off and I just hit the snooze button, then my alarm, I never receive text messages for some reason, even from people that like I deem like you know, like I don't know, favorites or whatever. Like you can do that and then you'll still get the notifications, but you don't get text still from people. It will just allow phone calls to come through. So I've told my dad that, and for some reason he still wasn't calling me, like he was still texting me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn it off just for Saturdays then, because that way like when he texts me in the morning, at least I know when like I'll wake up from that. So I turned it off, but then when I was like, oh wait, like no, you can still just call me, like I had to re-explain it to him or whatever. Like when I figured it out for a second time, I was like, because I was trying to figure out like why, again, like when he was sending the text message, it wasn't going through. And I was like, you can still call me, and it'll go through. So I told him that, again, he has to call me in the mornings, like, you know, to like wake me up, and you know, the call will still come through even if my phone's not on do not disturb, like, you know, again, for like the sleep hours or whatever. So again, I was going through all this, but I realized that, like I said, I turned it off for Saturday. So I had no alarm that was going off this morning either. So on top of that, that's why I ended up sleeping in, and I was super like tired on top of that from staying up late the night before, and I had no alarm going off. And I think that's why I was even more confused, because I was like, wait, I never heard an alarm go off. I was like, you know, I'm thinking too, like the power went out again, because I told you guys how it was like 2 weeks ago or whatever, like the power went out and then all my alarms were off. And I think honestly maybe my alarm next to my bed went off, but I think I might have actually turned it off like accidentally or on purpose, like while I was still kind of asleep. You know, I thought I was like over at my aunt's house already, which was like super bizarre to me, because I was like, okay, like, and I'm picturing her basement too, like while I was like rolling over in my bed, like my eyes were still closed, and I was like, okay, I gotta get up. I was like, you know, trying to picture like where I was, and then I was like, okay, as soon as I opened my eyes, I was like, I'm still in my room. I'm like, I'm not over at her house yet. I was like, that's not until next week. I was like, it's still a couple more days in my own bed. But like I said, for some reason I was just super like, again, you know, when you're like just barely like awake, you're just like, your brain is hardly functioning and is trying to make sense of what is going on. And so that was, like I said, how it was for me this morning. And then when I finally realized, like, no, I'm still at home, like I'm still in my room, I was like, okay, then I can go back to sleep. And then, like I said, I ended up falling back asleep. But I did wind up making dinner for tonight. We ended up doing that other Italian beef that I ended up getting. We also I ended up washing all the dishes too, because again, my mom wasn't feeling good. So like when she ended up making dinner from the other night, she didn't end up, like, she started feeling really bad on Thursday night. And so she didn't really wind up finishing any of the dishes. So I ended up washing all of that stuff that she used from dinner when she ended up making that really good the broccoli and cheddar cheese soup. So I ended up, like I said, cleaning up like the crock pot from that. And then also too, we ended up watching the Seahawks game, which I was a little disappointed in the outcome of that. But honestly too, like, everybody was saying the Seahawks were going to be that team that was like where the Bears are. Like, they weren't going to win a football game, basically, you know, 1 or 2 wins maybe here or there or whatever. The fact that they made it to the playoffs is pretty phenomenal. And on top of that too, they're set up pretty well in the draft as well, as far as like draft picks go, because of, you know, like their trades and everything like that. So I'm pretty excited about, honestly, like the outcome. Like, maybe they just need a piece or two and they could be Super Bowl contenders again, which would be really awesome. And again too, having pretty good draft picks is really nice as well. So that would be really cool. Like I said, if they can just maybe pick up a couple more pieces that they need to really, you know, like I said, really contend. But again, I'm super excited about, you know, like, it was disappointing. You obviously want them to do well in this, you know, playoffs, but I was like, honestly, nobody predicted them to be here. So the fact that they are, and again too, they are and set up well for the future, like, that's the kind of positivity that you, like, you know, are looking for. And I'm kind of the same with the Bears. Like, you know, the Bears have the first overall pick, and I'm looking forward to what they can do. Obviously too, they've run out of a little bit of, you know, like previous draft capital and stuff like that. But again, they, you know, it looks like they're kind of, you know, management looks like they kind of, you know, I feel like know what they're doing a little bit more maybe, as far as, you know, draft picks and, you know, players and trading and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So like I said, I'm excited and looking forward to kind of a lot of my favorite teams kind of, you know, futures as well. Like the thing that kind of stinks is that like all of my top 5 teams, right? So my favorite team, I think I told you guys, it goes Bears, Panthers, Seahawks, then Steelers, and then the Broncos. Those are like my top 5 teams. Like the teams that like, even when I really didn't like pay attention too much to like football, those were always like years ago, even like in high school, like they were a lot of the teams that I still kind of like liked. And I've noticed that they're the teams that I've kind of always stuck with. Obviously the Bears, because they're, you know, we're hometown. But those are the other 4 teams that I have always really liked. Like my dad actually has been a Seattle Seahawks fan since he was like little. You know, like he was, again, several years ago, probably before I was born. And it's also funny too because my aunt, she's actually from like I think like the Seattle area sort of, but she I think also like sort of grew up, or at least was like a pretty big Seattle fan as well. And so like she's a little bit more like homegrown kind of, and my dad has just ever since he was like young also really loved the Seattle. So like even though again we're not like from Seattle, like we're like family wise too, even extended family, like kind of, you know, like I said, my dad will always like kind of cheer them on. And then it's funny too because like my aunt will, because like I said, that's where she's from. But again, those are probably my top like 5 teams, and so all of them again are set. None of them are really like at all, like, you know, other than Seattle, none of those teams ended up going to the playoffs. But again, Seattle being the only team that went to the playoffs, all the other teams also are set up for really good draft picks as well. And so again, but Seattle, because they have, well, other than maybe Denver, because they have Denver's pick, they're actually set up pretty well. And again, to Denver, I don't know what's going on, but at least the other 3 teams too, the Bears, the Panthers, and I feel like the Steelers even kind of too, even though they were just barely out of the playoffs, like all they needed was 1 team to lose or whatever it was, and they needed to win, which I think they did the last game of the season. They would have been in possibly like, you know, same kind of Seahawks situation, but again too, like they are normally pretty well set up for like future and stuff like that. And even too with the Panthers, like the Panthers defense is really good. It just seems like they need to focus a little bit more on offense, and honestly they could be again maybe a contending team in a little while as well. The Bears too, we've got a lot of missing pieces I feel like, but hopefully the quarterback position is all secured, but other than that there's a lot of pieces I feel like the Bears are missing. But again, they could be a contender in maybe a couple of years, or hopefully even sooner than that. So like I said, a lot of my teams I feel like, you know, like I said, my top 5 are all, you know, well, not looking the best right now. I'm hoping that they're all kind of going to you know, again, be moving in that right direction. So you know, there's no, like I said, out of my top 5 teams, there's nobody else that's in the playoffs that I'm really like, I really love that team or whatever. I'd say probably the next team is maybe the Ravens, but again too, their quarterback's out. I was actually rooting for Jacksonville today, which was crazy football game. I don't mind Jacksonville. There's a couple teams like that I can't stand. There's a couple teams that I'm like indifferent to, and then there's a couple teams I like, and then there's like my top 5 teams. That's kind of how I rank. But Jacksonville was one of those teams, like I said, that I'm kind of like, I like them. I'm not, you know, insanely like, I hate this team, or, you know, I'm really indifferent. I do like them. They're kind of one of those teams that I feel like stands out to me, so I do like watching them. Which they haven't been good for a long time, but again, seeing them move on in the playoffs is kind of cool. And then also too, I like one other team was actually Cincinnati as well. I was kind of, you know, like they're like kind of like the underdog story, especially last year. Like I'm still kind of rooting for them again this year. And I was trying to think who else like is one of those teams that I like. Jack is like a really big, like Ravens are probably in his top 5 favorite teams. Like he would probably tell me that he would switch out. Maybe he absolutely can't stand the Steelers. So I think he would, between my mine and his, we're kind of in the same boat as far as our top 5. Like, he also really likes Denver, but he would definitely tell me that he switch out like the Steelers for the Ravens, because I think he can't stand the Steelers. And so, and that's like the funny thing though, is that me and Jack are always kind of like button heads when it comes to that. But then we're like the only 2 people in the house that like really like the Broncos. And so like, you know, like my dad seems like he's kind of indifferent, I think, to the Broncos, but like doesn't dislike them, but doesn't really like them too much either. But you know, and it's kind of like that situational, like it depends on who they're playing, like that my dad would root for them or whatever. But I'm trying to think who else is in the playoffs this year that, like I said, I would probably take. I am kind of, I do like the Eagles. I think that, like, I rooted for them the year that they won the Super Bowl, the last Super Bowl that they won. And I'm always kind of, like, a little bit, like, they're one of those teams that, like, I like more than I probably dislike them. So, again, they're one of those, like, I probably would root for them over, like, most teams, depending on, again, who they're playing. So long as it's not one of my top 5 teams, I would probably root for them in almost any situation. And the same thing too with like the Bills too. I don't really like New York football teams, but or New York sports teams in general, but the Bills are kind of one of those teams where I'm like, I would, you know, like, I don't know, they just feel a little bit different, like, you know, and I would kind of like root for them. I don't know why a lot of the New York teams to me are just very, very like not super memorable. The Yankees are maybe the only sports team from New York that I feel like, because there's just so many of them. Like, they're in California too. There's just so many like sports teams from those places, and even kind of Texas a little bit, that it's like there's just like I don't know how, like, you know, like I could be like, yeah, like I really like this state, I'm gonna root for their, like, you know, football team or whatever. It's like they got like 3, 4, 5 you know, or, you know, again, like a baseball team or whatever. And because I don't know, they just seem like not, I don't know, I pick a lot of my like favorite sort of like sports teams based on how much they stand out to me. And I feel like the Yankees only do because they're super, super old baseball team. But I do like the Red Sox more than I like the Yankees. So I actually love Boston. I love the Celtics. They're probably my second favorite basketball team, and so I think I'd have to say that I like the Red Sox more. And I obviously know too the rivalry there is really deep, so that's why I like, again, Yankees stand out to me because they're very, very old and historic team. But at the same time too, I like the Red Sox way more, like, than I feel like I like the Yankees. So like I said, you know, and the Red Sox too, though, they're a very old historic team, and so are the Chicago Cubs, obviously. But like I said, we don't have that other than in baseball. We don't have any other rival teams, so you know, I don't have to deal with any of that really here, and I'm a Cubs girl, so like I said, I don't have a lot of, you know, picking favorites as far as, you know, my hometown teams go. But again, anything else, it's kind of like, I don't, you know, I just kind of pick like my next top teams that, like I said, as long as they're, you know, again, my top 5 in order don't wind up playing each other, I will root for whatever of those teams are, you know, playing anybody else. And then, like I said, to my next kind of like group of teams that I really like are the ones that, like I said, I will probably root for so long as they're not playing any of the other of my top 5 favorite teams. But then, like I said, there's a lot that I'm just like, I hate, like the Green Bay Packers, or I'm very indifferent to like I don't really have much of an opinion on like the Titans. Like, they're one of those teams that like I forget exists all the time. Like, they're just not a memorable team, and like that's kind of what I'm saying with like a lot of the New York teams. Like, I just forget, and there's so many of them too, like I just forget that they kind of exist sometimes. Like, I'm always like, how many basketball teams are in New York, you know, like, and between that and hockey and football and, you know, all that kind of stuff, it's just like there's, you know, like, I don't know, they just don't stand out to me that much. But for some reason the Bills stand out to me a little bit more, so I probably will wind up rooting for them in the playoffs. And also too, they, you know, haven't, I don't know when the last time they've went to a Super Bowl was, at least not super, super recently, because like I said, last year was Bucks and, right, it was Bucks and the Yeah, Cincinnati was Bengals. And I still don't even think that the year before that or the year before that, like, it seems like it's always like Kansas City and wherever Tom Brady is. And, you know, like, I don't know. And then it's always that one other random team that's up there. You know, like I said, you know, it was the Eagles a couple of years ago. It was Cincinnati last year. It was, you know, like San Francisco, you know, a couple of years ago, whenever that was. But again, this is the first year, honestly, where I feel like I've really, even though none of the teams that I'm really pulling for are in the playoffs, I've been super paying attention to like the playoff brackets as far as the NFL goes this year, which normally I'm just like, okay, like, you know, if football's on, we'll turn it on or whatever. But like, I don't know why this year I'm just super into like, oh, what team can I root for? You know, like who's playing who, and like who would I pick out of these, you know, teams that are playing each other or whatever, and you know, that kind of stuff. So anyways though, guys, I'm gonna take a shower and get to bed so we can get to grocery stores tomorrow. I will see you guys in tomorrow's vlog with a haul. If you guys did enjoy today's though, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye, guys.